Hey guys, double wide 6 here, and I still have this Yards machine riding mower, and from what I understand, I've gotten a couple comments and I hear it's pretty common to have a leaky needle and seat in the carburetor on these Briggs and Stratton overhead valve engines, sometimes called the Intech engines. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pull this carb and we're going to replace the needle and seat. If you have symptoms like this, what might happen might be that all the gas will flow through the carburetor, get out the needle, and then fill up basically the oil. The engine block where there's oil will fill up with gasoline. And when I got that mower, it had this symptom, and I thought it was because the people moved the mower. I thought they might have stood it upright or something. But just to be safe, I'm gonna change the needle and seat. First thing I'm doing is shutting off the fuel, so I turn that to off. And if you don't have a fuel shut off, what you can do is just take a vice grip and lightly, clamp it on there to block the fuel line. And I'm also going to detach the fuel line from the carburetor. So we'll slide back the clamp and we'll pop this right off like so. Next, we're going to remove our vacuum hose off the back of the carburetor there, and we're going to pull off our two 7/16 mounting nuts, and that should release the carburetor with the exception of the governor linkage. Okay, now that those bolts are out, we should be able to pry up on this, move this plastic part. Because I don't have the gaskets for between the manifold and the carburetor right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the entire manifold and just leave the carburetor together. So I'm not doing a complete rebuild of it. I'm just trying to get to the needle and seat. So we'll see if we can pull this off. At the bottom of the carburetor, you have an electrical connection. That's just a solenoid to stop backfiring when you shut the engine down, closes off the fuel. And now the carburetor's loose, we just have these governor linkages hooked up. So up top, here, we have a spring, very delicate spring, and a linkage. So we're going to tilt that and pop those two off. And then up here, and I'm going to mark that hole. That's something I often do. Because there's several holes, I'm going to put a indication as to which hole that linkage goes to. So I got the carburetor in the bench in the vise, and we're just going to take off our solenoid. There's a little washer on the bowl, and we're going to remove the bowl. And the bowl gasket is coming with it. There we go. So pull that off. So here's our float, and we're going to pull out the fulcrum here. Here it comes. And we're going to pick up our float, and with our float comes our old needle. If we look real closely at this needle, it has a rubber tip. Some of the Honda engines, the tips are solid metal, so this does wear out, and that's probably where your problem comes from, because the seat on this particular carburetor is actually, I guess it's brass, so I don't think that wears out. But we're going to replace the needle, which is in my hand, and the seat here. So one thing that you want to do before you pull the seat out is you want to look at basically how proud or high up the seat is from the aluminum casting, and it's sticking up about, I don't know, a 32nd of an inch. So that's just a good guide for when you put the new one in. So what we're going to do is just take a standard drywall screw, We're going to line it up with the bottom of the seat, and we're going to give it a couple very firm twists into the bottom of the seat. Doesn't take much. And now we're going to try and pry up on that screw to get it out of there. So now that we have that screw in there, we're going to actually drop a cut off bolt right down in the hole, and we're going to use that to kind of protect those threads there. And we're going to get our pliers. We're going to try and yank this thing up. Oh, we got it. So as you can see, there's our seat. That was really in there. So the Briggs & Stratton part number for the seat is 690577, and there it is. So what we're going to do with the seat is take a little bit of oil, just a little bit, rub that on there just to help it slide in there. We're going to line it up straight, and we're going to set it in the hole. So to set the seat properly, I'm going to be using a punch, and I'm going to hold it upside down, and I'm going to align it with the top of the seat, and I'm going to very lightly tap it with a hammer. A bunch of very light taps until I get it to seat. No pun intended. It's got to go a little bit more. I'd say we're there. So here's the needle that we're going to be using. It's a Stens part 525291, and it replaces Briggs & Stratton 231855. So we're putting our bowl gasket back on there. I wish I had another bowl gasket, but I don't. So we're going to take our float, and we're going to take our new needle. We're making sure we get the right one, and we're going to line that up on the float like that, and I usually just put my finger there to kind of keep it in place, and we're going to ever so carefully seat it. There we go. And we'll put in our fulcrum piece. Like that. We're going to take our bowl. I'm going to clean this out. So we'll take our carburetor bowl, line that up, seat that, and our solenoid. And you don't want to cross thread that, and we're just going to snug that up with our 1/2-inch wrench. So I've hooked up the first and second governor linkage. Basically this one has the spring, and this one goes to that back hole here. You want to hook those up before you do anything else to the carburetor. Once they're hooked up, then you can do your fuel line and get it mounted. So we put the carb back together, bolted up the 2 manifold bolts, put the 2 bolts that hold on the carburetor in the back. We hooked up the vacuum hose. Back here is a little vacuum hose, so that's tied in, and our spark arrestor cable, that solenoid, is plugged in. The fuel line's put back on, and then finally we need to turn on the fuel. So we will open the fuel valve, and that should allow fuel into the carburetor. And now we're going to try and start it, and hopefully it works. So let's give it a test run. Wish me luck. Choke. Well, seems to be purring like a kitten. So that's what we want. So it looks like the repair went really well. The one suggestion that I'd probably have to you would be order the manifold gasket kit so that you can remove the manifold from the carburetor. That way you can clamp the carburetor in your vise a little easier. I didn't have that gasket, as I mentioned, so it made it a little bit harder to remove the seat because it really takes some pressure to pry that out of there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mow the lawn a little bit with this tractor and go up and down some hills and look for any like hesitation or anything, any problems with the float or the carburetor. But if everything seems good, I should be able to sell it pretty soon. I had a couple people contact me, but I haven't gotten back to them because I wanted to make sure I put that needle and seat in. So thanks for you guys that recommended that, and keep on watching. Double wide 6.